Hello, everybody. I'm sorry for the confusion in the schedule today. We've got a lot of votes that are popping up. So, just want to get started. Yesterday, the Senate Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee held a hearing on how small businesses continue to struggle under Obamacare. As I told HHS, a small business in Okoboji, Iowa, had told me that they have had to halt their plans to create new jobs due to the Affordable Care Act's employer mandate, and that they have stopped filling open jobs or cut back on hours to try and avoid the mandate. I've been hearing similar stories for the past few years now. In reality, Iowans are facing fewer choices as providers choose to drop out of the marketplace. Economic growth and job creation has stymied as employers reduce employee hours to part time. And now the shocking announcement that Iowans could face a staggering 43% increase in health care premiums next year. Obamacare is clearly rooted in a faulty Washington knows best mentality that replaces choice with a one size fits all mandate and burdensome taxes that hurt our jobs and stifles our economy. In keeping with my commitment to make government more efficient, I'm pleased to report that my latest initiative, the Prove It Act, recently passed out of the Senate Small Business Committee and now heads to the Senate for further consideration. The Prove It Act is an important initiative to help our small businesses who are struggling under the weight of burdensome rules and regulations. This bill increases transparency within the federal rulemaking process, especially when there is a disagreement between agencies over the economic impact of a rule on small businesses. In particular, this proposal designates a third party to review the facts and issue a publicly available objective assessment on whether the rule truly has a significant economic impact on small entities. By encouraging federal agencies to carefully consider the impact a rule may have on small businesses, it brings us a step closer to preventing harmful rules like the expanded definition of WOTUS and incentivizes better rulemaking to free up our job creators. Likewise, this proposal works to counter agencies like the EPA from having an unchecked ability to implement harmful rules and regulations without taking into account the concerns of our small businesses. I encourage my Senate colleagues to support this common sense proposal that forces our government to work more efficiently, as well as streamline our regulatory system so our small businesses can innovate and create jobs without the weight of unnecessary, costly regulations that stymie growth. In other news, I wanted to provide an update on my fight to restore the internment rights of women Air Force service pilots at Arlington National Cemetery. I am so pleased to announce that my bipartisan legislation passed both the House and Senate. It now sits on President Obama's desk. During World War II, these women, commonly referred to as the WASP, flew countless U.S. Army Air Force planes for non-combat service missions to free up their male counterparts for combat duty. In fact, Iowa was at one time or another home to at least 25 courageous WASP. However, due to the recent policy change made by the Army, these courageous WASP are being denied what was once their right to have their ashes placed in Arlington National Cemetery with full military honors. The WASP willingly put their lives on the line, including the 38 women who died in service to our great country, and they deserve to be celebrated and remembered by all. They were role models for women in the military like me and proved their strength and fortitude in the missions they carried out. It's my hope that the President acts as quickly as possible to sign this important measure into law. Lastly, I wanted to mention that tomorrow I'll be in Greene County leading a Veterans Roundtable discussion. I'll be hosting Iowa veterans and community leaders to improve the line of communication and ensure our veterans are receiving the benefits they were promised and a quality of care we can all be proud of. Fighting for veterans has always been one of my top priorities here in the Senate, and I look forward to continuing the discussion tomorrow in Iowa. And with that, I'd love to open up for a few questions.
So first we have Matt Baker from WHO.
Hi, Senator.
Hi, Matt.
Thank you for taking my question. My question is about Senate Bill S901, and just wondering if you could tell us why you're not supporting that bill to fund Agent Orange research.
Well, actually, that bill, I believe, is being wrapped into the omnibus bill it's called I think the Omnibus Vets First bill, and I am supportive of that bill.
Okay, next we have Kay Henderson from Radio Iowa.
Senator, you issued a written statement about the EPA's decision on renewable fuels. If you could, for our listeners, articulate what may be the next step.
Well, again, we continue to push on the administration, and I am very, very disappointed with the EPA's decision to reduce volume requirements for conventional biofuels. And I have stated this before, there is clear direction from Congress, and the EPA continues not to follow the original intent of the law. Unfortunately, this was not a surprise. The EPA is under the Obama administration, and they have repeatedly ignored congressional intent when they are administering the RFS. So, again, we will continue to push back on the EPA. This is something that Senator Grassley and I have been fighting for a very long time. It's possible that we could look at hearings to further discuss reasons why they are not following the original intent of the law, but we will find ways to push back on the EPA. Again, very disappointed in their announcement. They need to follow the original intent of Congress.
Okay, next we have Ann Hughes with KWQC.
Hey, Senator, how are you?
I am great. Thank you.
My question was already asked, so I'm good to go, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next we have Shane Vanderhart with Caffeinated Thoughts.
Yes, Senator Ernst, I was just curious, as you go to town halls around Iowa, what kind of questions are you hearing from Iowans?
Well, thanks, Shane. As we're going out around at the various town halls, there are a lot of comments about of course, we're still hearing about WOTUS. But basically what we hear the most about, maybe rules and regulations. I'm still hearing from a lot of folks that are struggling with insurance issues through the Affordable Care Act. I've had a number of them that have brought their premium statements into me, showing me how much they have increased over the years. I haven't seen a single person that has saved $2,500, as the president promised, with the Affordable Care Act. So a lot of those top button issues are still out there. Rules, regulations, overburdensome regs that are coming from the federal government and a number of these agencies, the Affordable Care Act, and of course, anything that can grow our businesses. I do hear from a number of employers that state they don't have the type of workforce that is necessary to support their businesses. This is a struggle in our rural areas. Also in the rural areas, when I'm hitting some of those counties, the further you get out from Des Moines, they state that even housing, finding quality housing to draw employees into the communities has been really tough. So there are a lot of issues out there, a lot of things where we need to have collaboration between our local governments, the private industry, state government, and of course, whatever role then the federal government should be involved in. So a lot of great questions and comments that are coming from so many of the people out at the town halls.
Okay, next we have Ed Anderson from Radio Dubuque.
Yeah, good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Ed.
Just quickly, your thoughts on the new overtime rule that will take effect December 1st. I know Senator Grassley is not too keen about it. How will that, in your opinion, impact the small businesses and nonprofits?
Well, to be upfront about it, it's going to be very harmful for our small businesses. And I am not supportive of this rule change that we have seen. So, and it's interesting, I just spoke to the Dubuque Chamber of Commerce just a while back. They have come out to visit with a number of the legislators, and this is one of the topics that they brought up in our discussion. It's detrimental. I see this as an overreach of the federal government. We know that there need to be good rules in place, but just to cut the entire group of states as all the same is very difficult to do because, and I use the analogy with our minimum wage as well. You can't just set one high minimum wage that works for every individual state because our cost of living is very different. So Iowa, as this new rule applies, is very different than the wages that are being paid in California, different than New York City. We all have different costs of living, different economies. I think it's very harmful. bill, it's a bad way to go.
Okay, next we have Brandon Blue from WHO.
Senator, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Brandon, I'm good.
Well, fantastic. I was just taking a look at this National Academies of Sciences GMO study that they put out this week. And I understand that the Senate Agriculture Committee is kind of in the middle of talking about sort of its second attempt at a national GMO labeling standard for food. I'm just curious if you could give us an update on the progress in the Senate Agriculture Committee there.
I will give you an update, and I'll tell you that it is moving very slow, and we are getting a lot of resistance coming from our allies or our friends across the aisle. Those folks that come from traditionally rural states, those that do have strong ag economies, they do feel that we should have some sort of a national labeling standard. However, they push back. They're still pushing back. I think that the pressures that they're under from a number of their colleagues in the more urban type states is a little bit overwhelming for them. But I encourage them to represent the interests of their states. I think that just having one national standard is okay. That's something that we've been working on. And Chairman Roberts from the Agricultural Committee is intent on getting this done so that we can preempt the Vermont law by July 1st. But it is going to take an awful lot of effort, a heavy lift, to get this done in a manner that fits all of these groups and works for everyone. I'm just going to reemphasize, it's moving slow right now this week. That could change in upcoming weeks, and we sure hope it does.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Next we have Jim Johnson.
Senator, many students are graduating this month. What's your advice to these graduates?
Well, one is to simply, and I want to say congratulations to all of our graduates. We've got high school graduates and we've got our college graduates. But one is to really get out there and set a reasonable goal. Know what you want to do, whether that's for our high school students that are going on to technical colleges and will be seeking employment soon, whether it is entering the military service, whether it's going on to a traditional four-year college. Just have a goal in mind and set your mind at that goal. Know what's available out there. Take a look. If they want to stay in Iowa, be employed in Iowa, look for those job opportunities that they really enjoy that are located in Iowa, or if there's opportunity to start a new business. We need to keep all these brilliant young people in Iowa, but having that goal, a reasonable goal that they can achieve coming out of school is very, very important. And then they need to set those steps to obtain that goal. But I want to wish them all the best. Iowa is a great place not only to go to school, but to start a new career, start a family, make it a lifetime experience. And I see a lot of folks out here in Washington, D.C. Many of them are native Iowans that have moved on, and I encourage them all to return to the state because we've got such great opportunities in Iowa. So set that goal and work towards it.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Next we have Keith with KTIV.
All my questions have been answered. Thanks for your time, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next we have Sarah with WOI.
Hi, Senator.
Hey,
Can
Sarah.
You, comment on Donald Trump's short list, and one of the judges is Stephen Colleton?
Oh, yes, I heard that he had come out with a list, and, I'm pleased that there is an Iowan on the list. I haven't been able to go back and review those other names, and I don't know enough about their backgrounds to comment, but I do think that it is important he starts to indicate who some of the choices may be. So at least I'm glad that he is focusing on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and last question we have is from Aaron Murphy.
Thank you, and good morning, Senator.
Hi, Aaron.
Hello. I was just wondering, and I got on late, so I apologize if this was covered before I jumped on. I was wondering what is the delay, or why is the delay with the Zika virus funding, why that's having a hard time getting moved through the chambers. They had the Senators for Disease Control director today saying that's an urgent need to get that funding in place, and I'm wondering what's holding that up.
Well, actually, we have been voting on that the last couple of days, and I do think that it is important that we fund the effort to combat against Zika. It is something that's starting to hit our shores now. We are seeing this. So we do need to combat this. Many different ideas out there, and some of them are not funded. So they don't have a funding offset. There was one proposal that I thought was very, very good. It did have a funding offset, which meant we could actually pay for it. There have been a number of funds available out there from other initiatives for other types of diseases or epidemics, and those funds sit there unused. And so a lot of our thought was, why don't we just transfer money from some of these other unused, unnecessary funds into combating Zika? So that was an opportunity that was presented to the president out there, and he said no, he didn't want to do that. So I think we could have funded this much sooner, but there's been just a lot of discussion on where the funds should come from and what types of programs should be funded by this initiative. But we do recognize that this is a threat. It needs to be taken care of, and I'm glad that we have finally been voting on those initiatives.
Good. Can you just tell me real quick where it is procedurally? What's next for it?
Well, we are voting on that today. We did have a number of those that came up. It was 2 days ago and then again today. So depending on how the final votes go for the package that it was included in, the transportation, housing, and urban development package, we'll see where it goes. It does have to pass through the Senate. Again, we were voting today. I ran out, so I'm not sure what the votes were. So we'll have to return back to the floor here pretty quickly and see where we are. But after it passes the Senate, it also needs to concur with what the House has for that particular appropriations bill, and then it would move forward to the president.
Very good. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
All right, folks. So if there's any additional questions, don't hesitate to email us at press@ernst.senate.gov. Thanks so much.